The call didn't come in like a call. No voice, no screaming, no breathing. Just a set of GPS coordinates stamped through the 911 system like a ghost pressed a button and walked away. Night shift dispatcher Lena Hart stared at the screen, waiting for the audio to kick in. But all she got was silence and a blinking cursor where a caller ID should have been. The coordinates pointed to the center of Lake Briar, an icy stretch of water outside Maple Ridge that had no homes, no docks, no reason to be in the CAD at 2:13 a.m. She almost cleared it as a system error until another line item appeared underneath the first. Unit down? Then, in the far corner of the dispatch floor, one of the old radios crackled once, like someone trying to wake it up. Maple Ridge was the kind of town that slept in layers. In the daytime, it was school drop-offs, grocery runs, and local news that mostly covered sports scores and weather. At night, it turned into empty streets and long stretches of highway where headlights felt like the only moving thing on Earth. The Maple Ridge Public Safety Communications Center wasn't big. 2 dispatchers on nights, 1 supervisor on call, and a steady rhythm of routine. Traffic stops, noise complaints, the occasional medical assist. Lena Hart had been dispatching for 6 years. She was good at it because she treated every call like a puzzle with human consequences. She could hear the difference between drunken confusion and real fear. She knew which officers liked clear directions and which ones needed an extra beat of calm. She also knew the system didn't send coordinates by itself. At least, it wasn't supposed to. On that shift, Lena shared the floor with her partner dispatcher, Tom, a tired but solid guy who'd worked nights long enough to measure time in cups of coffee. The on-duty patrol units were spread thin. Officer Mason Cole working the west side, Officer Talia Ruiz on the highway loop, and Sergeant Harlan floating between calls. Lake Briar sat on the edge of the county line. It was deep, dark, and, in winter, brutally cold. Most locals avoided it at night, not because of legends, but because the road out there had blind curves and bad cell service. The official history of Lake Briar was clean: fishing in summer, ice warnings in winter. The unofficial history, whispers in break rooms, was that something had happened out there years ago. Something the older staff didn't like to revisit. Lena didn't know what that something was. She was too new for the old stories, and most of the veterans who might have explained had retired. Dispatch turnover was a quiet kind of time travel. Faces changed, but the building stayed the same. And yet, when the coordinates hit her screen, Lena felt like the room recognized them. Lena did what dispatchers do when something doesn't make sense. She verified before she escalated. She checked the line logs. No caller number, no ANI/ALI, no voice file, just coordinates, a timestamp, and a strange system tag she hadn't seen before. "Tom," she said quietly, "did you push a test ping or something?" Tom didn't look up at first. "Nope. If I did, I'd be asleep already." She called her supervisor's after-hours number and got voicemail. Typical. Then she did the next best thing. She contacted the nearest unit. "Unit 12, she said into the radio, keeping her voice steady. "Can you advise if you're near Lake Briar? I'm getting an automated coordinate ping from that area. No voice contact." A beat of static, then Mason's voice. "Dispatch, I'm about 10 minutes from there. What's the nature?" "That's the problem," Lena said. "There isn't one. It's just coordinates." Mason exhaled audibly. "Copy. I'll swing by the access road." Lena watched Mason's unit icon move on the map. The night outside the dispatch center was calm. Inside, Lena's mind ran through possibilities. A glitch, a misrouted alarm, someone's phone calling 911 from a pocket and transmitting location. Then the second message arrived. Another set of coordinates. Different spot, still Lake Briar, but closer to the northern edge. And with it, a short text note in the call narrative field. Lights under water. Tom finally looked over. "Okay," he said, straightening. "That's not normal." Lena swallowed. "No, it's not." She notified Sergeant Harlan, who answered with the clipped tone of someone half awake and instantly annoyed. "You're telling me the system is sending coordinates without a caller?" "Yes, Sarge, twice now, and now there's text, no voice." "Send Ruiz," Harlan said, "and notify fire for standby. Don't make it a circus, but don't ignore it." Within minutes, Mason reached the lake access. His dashcam feed wasn't live to dispatch, but Lena could hear the change in his voice when he keyed up. "Dispatch," Mason said, slower now. "There's something out here. I'm seeing a faint reflection in the water, like metal." Ruiz arrived shortly after, her tone sharper. "Lake's calm, no boats, but I see what he means. Something submerged close to shore. Could be a vehicle." Lena's stomach tightened. Vehicles didn't just appear underwater, not without a story. Firefighters arrived with portable lights. Their beams swept across the surface, and the water lit up in patches, cold black, turning to a dull mirror. And there, just below the surface line, was the outline of a patrol cruiser, faded, silted, unmistakable by the shape of the light bar bracket. Mason's voice came through, almost disbelieving. "That's a unit." Ruiz added, quieter, "That's an old unit." Lena turned slowly in her chair and looked at the dispatch room wall where old photos hung. Retirements, award ceremonies, a few faded frames that no one bothered to dust. In one, barely noticeable, was a photo of a much older patrol car model in front of the station. Same shape, same era. Her mind tried to reject it. Unknown to current staff, she thought. Not as a fact, but as a warning. Then a third coordinate ping hit her screen. This time, it didn't point to the lake. It pointed to the Maple Ridge Police Department itself, right to the records room. And the note field, in plain text, read, "Check the shift notes." By protocol, they secured the scene and treated it like a possible evidence recovery. Chain of custody, scene logs, minimal speculation on the radio. But inside the station, Lena couldn't shake the words, "Check the shift notes." Sergeant Harlan arrived at the station in person, jacket half-zipped, expression tight. "Show me," he said. Lena pulled up the call history. No audio, no caller ID, 3 pings. Lake Briar North Edge, then this, records room. Harlan stared at the screen like it was insulting him. "Tom, you see this?" Tom nodded slowly. "Yep." Harlan exhaled. "All right, we do this clean. Lena, print the incident log. Tom, keep the floor covered. I'm going to records." Lena stood up without thinking. "I'll go with you." Harlan hesitated, then nodded. "Fine, but stay behind me." The records room smelled like paper and old carpet. Rows of filing cabinets, boxed reports, binders with years stamped on the spines. Harlan flipped the light switch. The fluorescent bulbs buzzed, then stabilized. Too bright, too normal for what they were doing. "What exactly are we looking for?" Lena asked. Harlan's voice was flat. "Anything about a unit in Lake Briar." They searched by year, by location, by keyword. Nothing obvious, no press release, no memorial plaque, no headline pinned on the corkboard. It was like the event had been erased or never recorded properly in the first place. Then Lena noticed something small. A thin folder wedged behind a row of binders, as if it had slipped and been forgotten. No barcode, no modern label. just handwriting on the front in faded ink. Shift notes. Night watch. No year. Lena's fingertips hesitated over the folder. It felt wrong to touch, like it belonged to someone else's memory. Harlan opened it. Inside were lined pages, handwritten notes in a neat, disciplined script. Calls, times, unit numbers, locations. The kind of thing dispatchers and supervisors used to keep before everything went digital. Lena's eyes landed on a line halfway down the first page, and her breath caught. 2:13 a.m. Coordinates received. No voice. Lake Briar. Her throat went dry. That's now, she whispered. Harlan flipped to the next page. His jaw tightened. There were more entries. Calls that had happened recently in Maple Ridge, written down decades ago, like someone had been logging the future. Driver reports car stopped on bridge shoulder, hazards on, dog barking. Landlord reports smoke alarm going off, no answer at door. Welfare check requested after neighbors hear thumps, then silence. Word for word, the same phrasing Lena had typed into CAD on other shifts. The same rhythm of calls, the same small-town emergencies. Lena backed up a step, heart thudding. How is that possible? Harlan didn't answer. He turned the folder over, checking for dates, stamps, anything. And on the inside cover, written in the same faded ink, was a final line. If you're reading this, it means the lake didn't keep me. Don't ignore the coordinates. They're all someone has left. At that exact moment, Lena's console in the dispatch room chimed. A new coordinate ping. Tom's voice came over the intercom, tight. Lena, Harlan, you need to see this. The new coordinates pointed to an address on the far east side. The call out to the east side address wasn't treated as a paranormal hunt. It was treated like a lead, an actionable tip with an unknown source. That's what made it so hard to talk about later, because when officers arrived, they didn't find a monster. They found the kind of overlooked truth that sits quietly until someone points directly at it. The backyard shed was old, padlocked, and half hidden behind overgrown shrubs. The homeowner, an older man, answered the door confused and irritated, insisting no one had been in the shed for years. He had receipts for the lock. He had a story. He had the kind of confidence people have when they believe time protects them. Harlan kept it procedural. Sir, we have a specific reason to check that outbuilding. We need access. The man refused at first. Then, when Harlan mentioned the missing person case tied to the address, the confidence slipped. Just a fraction. Enough. They obtained consent, reluctant, defensive, and opened the shed. Inside, dust, tools, old boxes. Nothing dramatic. No obvious answer. But then Ruiz, methodical as always, found a section of flooring that sounded different under her boot. Hollow, like someone had replaced boards. They documented everything. They called in detectives. They treated it as evidence, not spectacle. What they uncovered wasn't shown in graphic detail and didn't need to be. The important truth was simple. The coordinates had led them to something real, something connected to an unsolved report, something that had waited years for someone to look in exactly the right place. Back at dispatch, the mood changed. Tom didn't make jokes. The radios sounded louder than they used to. Every new call felt like it carried an extra layer, like the building itself was listening. The next coordinate ping arrived 2 nights later, then another. Each one pointed to a place tied to an old, unresolved incident. An abandoned stretch of road where a hit and run had never been solved. A storage unit connected to a fraud case that went cold. A rural mailbox cluster near a missing pet report that had always felt off. Not every ping produced a breakthrough. Some led to dead ends. Some led to nothing at all, except the sick feeling that someone was pointing, again and again, saying, "Here, Look here. Lena began to dread the sound of the CAD notification chime. She also began to depend on it, because once you've seen a lead like that turn into truth, ignoring the next one feels like choosing not to help. And yet, the more the coordinates came, the more Lena felt watched. Not in the supernatural sense, but in the occupational sense. Like a veteran on the other end of the line, evaluating her choices, testing whether she would do what the job demands when there's no script. She started reviewing old shift rosters from the early 2000s, looking for names tied to Lakebriar. Most were gone, retired, relocated, deceased. One name appeared repeatedly in faded printouts and archived memos. Everett Lane. No current staff recognized it, no photo on the wall. But when Lena searched deeper, she found a brief internal note from 20 years ago with 2 words typed in all caps. Lane, presumed lost. No explanation, no closure. Just a line in a system full of lines. Weeks passed, and Maple Ridge kept living its ordinary life. School events, work commutes, weather alerts. Inside the dispatch center, the coordinates became a shadow schedule layered over the normal shift schedule. Harlan tried to shut it down at first. He wanted official channels, clear sources, verifiable callers. But the system didn't care what he wanted. The pings kept arriving, always through the same pathway, always without voice, always with a message that felt like it came from someone who understood how dispatchers think. Short, precise, actionable. Lena did what she could to bring it back into the world of policy. She documented every coordinate, every timestamp, every outcome. She built a file, clean, unemotional, professional, because if the department ever needed to explain why they acted on a non-call, she wanted more than a story. Then she did something else. She asked the oldest civilian employee in the building, the records clerk who'd been there forever, about Everett Lane. The clerk went quiet the moment she heard the name. "You shouldn't dig," she said softly. Lena kept her voice gentle. "I'm not chasing rumors. I need to understand." The clerk sighed, the way people sigh when they're deciding whether to reopen a door they nailed shut. Lane was good, she admitted. Too good. He'd stay late, review calls, follow up on things nobody else had time for. And then one night there was confusion. A unit went missing near Lakebriar. People said Lane kept insisting he was getting pings before pings were a thing. Like the system was talking to him. "And then?" Lena asked. The clerk's eyes flicked toward the dispatch floor like she expected someone to overhear. Then he disappeared. Some said he went out to the lake himself. Some said he never left the building. Officially, they called it a tragedy and moved on. Lena sat with that for a long time. Because if Everett Lane had vanished with questions in his hands, maybe the coordinates weren't a haunting. Maybe they were unfinished work. A week later, on a slow night, Lena opened the shift notes folder again. She studied the handwriting, the times, the phrasing, the way the notes seemed to anticipate her exact style of logging. And she noticed something she hadn't before. In the margins, faint pencil marks, tiny corrections, like someone had revised the future. She turned the last page. At the bottom, beneath old ink, there was a newer entry, barely visible, like it had been written lightly on purpose. "If the coordinates stop, it means I can't reach you anymore. Don't let the work die with me." That night, right at 3:17 a.m., Lena's console chimed again. Coordinates. This time, they pointed back to Lakebriar, not the center, not the north edge. A new spot, closer to the shoreline where Mason and Ruiz had seen the old cruiser. The note field read, "Listen." Lena sat perfectly still, headset pressing against her hair, heart thudding in her ears. She wanted to call Harlan. She wanted to send units. She wanted to do something. Instead, she did the simplest thing. She listened. She turned her audio monitoring up. She watched the silent call field. And for the first time since this began, a voice file appeared. Only a few seconds long, distorted by static, thin as a breath on glass. It wasn't a full sentence. It wasn't a confession. It was a dispatcher's cadence, calm, practiced, familiar, speaking like someone who knew the job would keep going, whether he was there or not. Maple Ridge, the voice said, faint and breaking. Don't clear it. Then the file cut out. The coordinate pings didn't stop after that, but they slowed, like the system had said what it needed to say. Lena never told the public. She never made it a legend. She kept it where it belonged, in the quiet space between duty and doubt, where dispatchers live every night. And when new trainees asked why she was so careful about weird calls, she gave them the only answer she could defend. Because sometimes the help you get doesn't look like help. And sometimes the difference between an unsolved case and a solved one is whether someone takes a strange lead seriously. If you were Lena, would you treat those coordinates as a dangerous glitch or as a responsibility someone else couldn't finish? Where's the line between only act on verified calls and don't ignore a lead that could save someone? And if the job itself could reach back through time to guide you, would you follow it, even when it scares you?